Welcome to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Wieme, a peak performance coach and business strategist dedicated to helping you see what's possible within you, the blind spots that are holding you back, and the solutions to ensure success and fulfillment without the hustle. I use my secret sauce of metaphysics, brain science, and scripture to work with God to manifest your ideal life and business. If you're ready to create massive forward momentum in your business and bust through the blocks that drag you down, join me on the Spiral Up journey and create the clarity, confidence, and consistency to become the CEO that lives your life by design. It's time to create the sustainable impact, income, and time freedom you desire faster. Now is the time to spiral up. Hey friend, welcome back to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Wieme, and as I always promise you, I'm going to show up authentically, vulnerably, and help you to see how you can continue to spiral up and stop getting in your own stinking way. Now, I know that I can certainly tell you about all the cool things that I'm learning because I'm a total personal development junkie, and I can tell you about my clients' perspectives because I've been able to help them through this. I also feel like it's really powerful when I continue to share with you where I'm getting stuck and how I am able to shift myself out of that. Now, the thing that I want to just point out really quickly is that self-development and spiraling up is a continued lifelong process. And what's going to happen is as you continue to grow, as you continue to essentially spiral up on your journey, you're going to find that you're going to recognize triggers a little bit faster, and you're going to be able to basically pivot and address and get past those blocks faster. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to show up. And if you think that, there's a right or wrong, black or white, I have already healed from that perspective, then you're going to let yourself down, because what's going to happen is those moments are going to come into your life. Those teaching moments are going to happen. And then you're going to start to shame and guilt yourself. And you're going to think, maybe I don't have what it takes. Or you're going to think, maybe I'm not as far along as I thought. And that is not the case. When you are able to recognize it faster and you're able to pivot and shift faster, you actually are hopefully proving to yourself, right, that you are on the right path. Now, I shared with you a little bit about my personal development journey and kind of where I got stuck a little bit on last week's episode. So if you didn't catch that, go ahead and go back because I get really vulnerable with you guys. But basically, I've been in this really massive shift in my own personal development journey. And when I went to the last Becoming Experience retreat, I was shifted to this next level. And gosh, when I got home, I was having to essentially face some of the things that could potentially keep me from leveling up or rising to the calling that I believe God has for me. And so it's been a really interesting experience, I guess, because I've been acknowledging the difference between self-reflection and self-regulation. And that's what I want to focus on in today's episode, is really just this place of knowing and getting into the action and doing, because I think what happens to a lot of us, and I'm going to speak for myself, but I'm going to speak to the people that I typically tend to attract, which are, past versions of myself. And the clients that I work with are very much aligned with this overachieving perspective. We want to make a massive difference in the world. We're impact driven. We also, though, have a tendency to find ourselves stuck in perfectionism. We find ourselves stuck in almost an addiction to personal growth. And as a high achiever, we want to continue to get better. We want to continue to essentially get to this place where we feel like we've arrived, even though that's a fallacy. None of us will ever get to this place where we're arriving. We are, really tapped into the law of perpetual growth, which means that, God creates all of us, everything in this planet, to have this deep-seated drive to continue to grow. And those of us that are, in this high achieving personal development space are oftentimes so caught up in that we can allow ourselves to basically overanalyze the heck out of things and overanalyzing the heck out of ourselves. And we get caught up in this cycle of self-reflection to the point that we overanalyze everything, that we find meaning in everything to the detriment of actually doing something with that. And I find that I get caught up in this. One of the biggest, downsides that I have in my own personal development and my makeup in myself is really just this trap of all or nothing, black or white, right or wrong. And I think that
when we are really driven by personal development and growth, and we want to continue to strive for better, we almost can get caught up in this illusion or this fantasy that there is a right or a wrong, and that the more that I learn, the more that I grow, the closer I'm going to be to the perfect or the right way of doing things. And that can be really, really hard, because what happens is we get caught up in this fantasy that we will eventually be doing everything the right way, or the perfect way, or the growth way, or the evolved way. And it can actually prevent us from doing, with the knowledge that we gain, the thing that we need to do to create massive change, right? So we get caught up in this self-analyzing cycle where we can maybe, find ourselves analyzing every thought that we have, or analyzing our friendships, or analyzing our business, or analyzing the conversations that we have, analyzing how we handled things, analyzing our growth. We're just getting into the second quarter of the year. So we're analyzing, how the last quarter went. We're analyzing how the last year went. We're using that knowledge to be able to plan for quarter two or the rest of this year. And we get caught up in this analyzing space. We journal on it, we pray on it, we ask our friends about it, we talk to our coaches about it. We look at the things that we're going through as like, okay, well, what can I learn from this? What can I use from this to create a better outcome for myself? What can I use from this to become more perfect, more right? And what I see happening with myself sometimes, and a lot of my clients, and perhaps you as a listener, where you're so aware and you find yourself like analyzing things like, okay, well, what can I learn from this? What is the lesson in this? That you start to look at these conversations, and you pick them apart, or you think about the way in which you reacted to somebody and you pick it apart, or the way that somebody spoke to you and you pick it apart. Like, okay, how am I attracting this? Or what did I bring in? How did I bring this in? Or if the world is a mirror, like, what am I supposed to learn from this interaction or this person? And what happens is we get stuck so much in this cycle of reflection and analyzing that we start to believe that there's something wrong with us. And then therefore we start to get back into the hustle of like, okay, I need to learn, I need to grow, because I want to get closer to that right versus the wrong. And the more we reflect, the more we analyze ourselves, the more we convince ourselves that there's something wrong with us. Right? The harder we try to overanalyze it, and it becomes this giant, massive, self-deprecating cycle that I want all of us to be able to get out of. And so really where we can take this overindulgence of self-reflection and move it into actual change and improvement is the difference between knowing and doing. It's the difference between self-awareness and self-regulation. So self-awareness is a reflective part. Awareness is really the mirror in which we can look at ourselves and say, okay, where am I hitting it in the right way? Where am I hitting the wrong way? Where am I growing? How can I, improve? How can I celebrate? But then it's also in the motion of like, what can I do with this? And I think that if we get sucked into this whole reflection cycle and convince ourselves that we need to be fixed, or that we need to continue to work on ourselves so that we can get to this place where that we want to be, we don't actually take any movement and action. And what I want to do is to help you to recognize that we can lead ourselves. We can lead ourselves from the feeling of what we want to look at and analyze and learn from, without abandoning our value and without abandoning our voice. That just because we love to learn, and just because we love to make ourselves better, and just because we want to be better communicators, be better business person, be better wives and moms, be better friends, that doesn't mean that we have to go into I suck. There's so much about me that needs to be fixed. There's so much about me that's wrong. And we get into that cycle of just beating ourselves up and going back into this overanalyzing space. We can start to open up and recognize the power of the and situation, that I can honor my feelings, I can honor my growth, I can honor what I see as a way for me to get better. And I get a chance to recognize that I am just amazing the way I am. And I get to improve a little bit. And I could take this experience for what it's worth and apply it and do something with it. But getting stuck in this over analyzing space is really, really hard. So what I want to do is to teach you guys a few of the things that I have learned to get me out of that cycle, to get me out of that downward spiral of over analyzing and self-harm, or not self-harm, but like thoughts that are harmful, or thoughts that feel like they're shaming myself or guilting myself into not being better. Okay. And being able to take it, to be able to say, okay, cool, this is a learning experience, and I'm going to take this, I'm going to do something with it, I'm going to let it go. And I promise you that if you allow yourself to just see it, take something that you can learn from it, apply it, and let it go, it's going to help you on that spiral up journey. It's going to help you to recognize it faster the next time. You'll be able to pivot faster the next time. You're going to continue to be able to be in motion versus getting caught up in the perfectionism, the right or the wrong, the black or the white, the I have so much work to do that I can't do anything with it, and the analysis paralysis that happens with that. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to have this conversation once I figure out the exact right way to have this conversation, or I'm going to start this once I have this exact, right analysis of what I can do to be a better coach or a better social media influencer or a better whatever. Stop analyzing the crap out of things. Stop reflecting on things to the point where you are getting yourself stuck, and allow for yourself to just take it, be lighthearted with it, think about what can I learn from this, take action, and then release it. Okay? Because each time you do that, you're going to get faster, you're going to get better, and you're going to find yourself moving and having forward momentum versus staying stuck. All right. So what can you do? Number one is I want you to recognize that whenever you are in a space where you're like, okay, this is a learning moment for me. Maybe that conversation didn't go well. Maybe my husband was really frustrated with me about this. Maybe I yelled at my kids. Maybe I am looking at last quarter and I'm like, I didn't follow through on these things. Okay. The first thing that we do when we can get into this reflective part of the equation is to regulate your nervous system, because you're never going to get to the place of being able to fully reflect and to be able to fully take in everything that you can take in if you are caught up in this fight or flight, high stress, cortisol, self-deprecating energy. Okay. So what I want you to do is just breathe. Oftentimes I help my clients do this by doing what I call boxed breathing, which is really just taking a big breath in and holding it for a few seconds, and then taking a big breath out and holding it for a few seconds, and then doing the same. So it's basically like you're creating a box of your breathing where you're taking a long breath in, you're holding that breath, you're taking a long exhale out, you're holding that breath. And what that does is it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, or the rest and digest part, and it helps to regulate that versus keeping you in this fight or flight, like high energy, high stress space. Okay. Once you're able to regulate your nervous system, your mind is going to be clearer. You're going to have more self-compassion. You're going to have more clarity on what it is that you need to look at. And it's just going to be able to help you do it from a space of high vibrations. Okay. The second part that I want you to consider in this space is taking your thoughts captive. This is, again, the allowing yourself to be reflective versus punishing. So if you notice yourself punishing, I want you to just think about it like those old Scooby-Doo episodes that I've talked about in my book, where you're like, oh, I could have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you pesky kids. It's like having a lighthearted thought around it versus like, oh, I did it again. So you notice your thought, you take your thought captive, you stay in a curious space, and you stay in a compassionate space. It's like, okay, I just did that again, where I told myself that I suck. I told myself that I don't know anything right. I told myself that I'm not good at this. I told myself that I have a lot to learn and that I'm never going to get there. Okay, isn't that interesting? Right? You recognize it like, okay, all right, this is a place that I really want to explore. This is a place that I want to improve in. And just allowing yourself to stay curious and allowing yourself to stay compassionate when you recognize these thoughts, holding your thoughts captive. Okay. Step 3 is I want you to now go from a place of like overanalyzing everything and concentrating on the why. The why is important. It's like, okay, isn't this interesting? I snapped at my husband, and I do this every time I feel like I am not being respected or that I feel like I have to prove myself to him, let's just say. Okay. So you can be like, isn't that interesting? I caught myself doing this. I recognize the trigger, and I can say to myself, okay, I wonder why I do that. Well, I think I do that because I feel like this has happened in my life that has made me feel like I have to prove my worth. And oh, interesting. I can see where my ego is coming in here. And then I can look at it and say, okay, that happened because maybe I had to prove myself when I was younger, or that this happened at work several years ago and I felt like I always had to prove myself. So if you can take it from, okay, isn't this interesting? And then, I wonder why I did that. I wonder why I did that. And this is where a lot of people get stuck. And especially my high achievers and my all or nothing black or white friends, because you get so caught up in the why am I like that you don't actually do anything with it. And so after you discover like, okay, what is the why in this? Like, what is the deeper reason why I would behave this way? Where do I maybe need to examine myself? But the important thing is that we have to now switch to now what. So we go from the why to the now what. So from the why to the now what is like, okay, interesting. So I'm recognizing that every time he does this, I behave this way. And I think that I definitely need to acknowledge that he didn't mean anything by it, but he just bumped up against an old bruise, emotional bruise, right? And that I recognize this trigger. So now what is, okay, I recognize this. And the next time that this happens, I'm going to pause and I am going to allow myself to recognize that he didn't mean what story I told myself that he meant. Okay. Because what I did was I told myself a story of what happened 5 years ago when this incident really happened, right? And so it's like my brain will look for ways to validate old belief systems. And so I've allowed his interaction with me to become part of my evidence bank, per se, of why I think that this is true about myself. When in reality, it's really just the healing that I have behind that. So it's like, okay, now what? What can I do with this now that I recognize this? I can pause next time he said this. I can ask myself, like, what story am I trying to say? Maybe I need to make it a point to talk to my coach about it, or work with an energy worker who can recognize where I have some stuck energy. This is one of the things that I love doing with my clients is I get them to a point where I can identify where the actual limiting belief was formed, the moment in time, like anywhere between as specific as 5 minutes and 24-hour period. And I'm able to help recognize when that happened. And then I'm able to essentially neutralize it energetically and then replace it with the truth that we can move forward from that point on. And so if you can use this self-analysis and this reflection and this exploration of why as, oh, cool, now I know what I want to work on with somebody who knows how to do this, that is going to get you into action. You know what I'm saying? And so it's really just this beautiful synergy between the why and the now what. And that's what I want you to do, is take it to the next level, which is I call it the 3 to 1. This is the 3 actions to every 1 awareness. So I'm aware of this. I want to reflect on this. But then what are 3 actions that I can commit myself to doing now that I have this awareness? The movement and the mirroring are both required if you want to have personal growth that works. But you cannot stay stuck in this self-sabotaging overanalysis of every thought, of every relationship, of everything that you're doing, everything that's going wrong, everything that's going right. It just can keep you stuck. You have to get into the movement. You have to get into the action. So that's what I want you guys to do, is I want you to recognize, where am I overanalyzing myself? And how can I take this as a gift that it is, and then move myself into self-regulation? self-regulation, self-movement, so that I can take this insight, this reflection, and actually do something with it. Again, you are going to stay stuck and you're going to continue to spiral down if you have an imbalance in this equation. And so what I want you guys to do is to learn from me, to recognize that we all, especially if we are impact driven, we are just wanting to be the best version of ourselves. We want to prove to ourselves at the end of our lifetime that we did everything that we could with what we have. But if we're stuck in this self-critical, over-analysis, over-reflective state without actually doing anything with it, you are going to continue to stay stuck. You are going to continue to shame yourself and guilt yourself into not being perfect or not being better or not doing better. And that is just going to take you down this spiral. That is just going to take you to the lower levels of that vibrational scale. And it's going to essentially realign you with the things that are going to continue to aggravate this cycle, right? I want you to be able to move forward. And in order for you to do that, I want you to allow yourself the permission to give yourself some grace, give yourself some passion, give yourself some curiosity around it. But more importantly, asking yourself, how can I regulate myself, lead myself? How could I get myself into action to actually implement change that is a result of this reflection? Okay. I hope that this helped. I mean, I think that, in my own experience, it was, oh my gosh, like I literally felt like I was living in a snow globe is how I described it. It's like every single thought that I had coming in felt like I was analyzing it, and every interaction that I had with people, and every, how am I, attracting these people into my life, and how am I, what am I supposed to learn? And I am such a growth-minded person, and I do want to learn. And I believe that everything is perfectly perfect, and that the lessons are supposed to come into my life so that I can continue to grow. But if I stay stuck in this analysis paralysis of myself, and to believe that there's something wrong with me, and that to believe that I have to just stay in this space of over critical and analysis, I am not going to be able to rise to that level that I'm supposed to be in. And I hope that this helped. I hope that I could give you guys both some realization that you're not alone in this space, and some hope that you can actually get out of this cycle and to get into a place where you are ready to have massive change in your life. So if you're finding that this is something that you can resonate with, that you relate to for sure, and you're curious about this whole how does that work with, you actually being able to identify the exact moment in time where a limiting belief was formed, and to get to the point where we can energetically neutralize that and to replace it with truth and to get you into forward momentum and action, I want you to go ahead and go into the show notes, and I want you to get yourself on my calendar for a success diagnostic call or a success accelerator call. I can essentially help you to identify some of that and to get you into forward momentum. So let's not stay stuck, friends. Let's continue to spiral up. Let's continue to help to support one another and to allow ourselves to continue to grow and be self-compassionate. All right. I hope we'll see you at the next Spiral Up episode next week. And I am so grateful to be here on your journey. All right, everybody. I will talk to you soon. Bye.
So much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Each honest review helps me spiral up so that I can serve you even better. Whether you're feeling a lack of impact, income, or time freedom, or perhaps you're just ready for massive momentum in your business, let's chat. Apply for a breakthrough call so that you can gain clarity, identify what's holding you back, and make a plan to spiral up. Head on over to iam-lifebydesign.com/breakthrough or access the link in the show notes. For immediate support, log into our community, the Better Club. We focus on inspiration, tactical guidance, and support. This is a community that wants to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business, and we're going to help you do the same. Let's spiral up, friends.